Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. I always habitually look at the date of September 17, 2025, reminding myself where we are in time and space. And we're having a kind of a late summer here, late warm fall, I guess you would call it, late summer, which is really nice. The only problem is that the mosquitoes came out. So today I'm hosting, as the banner says, Curtis Stone. I'm excited to talk to him. And we're going to go into some pretty personal material. I had a chance to, by the way, Curtis, who's in the backstage now, hear his interview or hear your interview with Luke Story. That was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. Very well done. And there's just a few things coming up I want to let you guys know about. One, in the House of Free Will, we're doing a workshop. This is my private association that you can find at bethmartins.com. There's an application there. And so we're doing two workshops coming up. One is next Wednesday, and it's on method writing. So it's not the free form writing, barfing on a page. It's giving yourself a structure and a frame and exercises to pull the best out of you. And I learned like just this much of it, and it was actually so fruitful for creativity and also for bringing up emotions. By the way, that's one of the things about music and art. It always does that for the creator, at least. The second workshop in the House of Free Will be coming up. We haven't set the date yet, but Topher Gardner is coming on to talk about sexuality, of all things. He's like, you want to talk about domes? You want to talk about biochar? And I'm like, how about sex? Because he's been on that topic lately, and I actually really appreciate his perspective. So those two things are for members only. You can apply for membership with the link in the notes below. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Curtis on. If you give me a heads up, or a thumbs up, I should say. Your head's already up. He looks ready. Okay, we'll bring him on. Hello, Curtis. Welcome.
Hi, Beth.
So great to have you here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Wow, so much has changed since you've been on.
Yeah, a lot. And we had a number of conversations last winter too, when it was all going down.
Yeah. I was, I guess I was on my way to an Acapulco, and you reached out to say, sorry, you won't be there. And then I discovered what was going on behind the scenes. Yeah, pretty intense times. I have, yeah. So would you like to, just for anybody out there that might not already be aware of you, do you want to introduce yourself? I can also read your bio, which I thought I had exactly right here, and I don't for some reason.
I can introduce myself.
Yeah, go ahead. Why not? It's always more fun that way.
Yeah. So Curtis Stone, I am, I guess got my start being in the internet world as the urban farmer. I wrote a book in 2016 that was a bestseller in the urban, or I guess small scale agriculture space. And that's how people got to know me. I launched my YouTube channel in January 2024. Oh, not 2024, God, 2014. And so, yeah, I've been out there for a long time doing that stuff. But during the COVID show, I kind of switched gears. My family and I moved off grid. We bought a large off grid property in the mountains of southern BC, and started embarking on that journey. And so my YouTube channel now is Off Grid with Curtis Stone, and I'm on X at Off Grid Curtis Stone. And so I guess that's how people know me today. But I've had a long journey, being a truther for 25 years, learning about the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits and the Freemasons and all that from my father in the year 2000. And so I'd been kind of on that journey for a long time as well. Also met Cal Washington in 2014, did our first notice of liability, and I've been on a law journey for 11 years now, I guess, too. And so I guess I'm a pretty multifaceted individual. I have a pretty broad skill set in the law and on the land, I guess you could say. And yeah, that's how people know me.
Very good. And is there a common thread that ties all of the things that you've done and do together? What would you say that is?
Freedom and liberty, essentially. That's the common thread. That's why I wanted to become a farmer in the first place, is that I was always perplexed by, even at the age of 12, I was perplexed by the fact that we have to pay rent to live, essentially. It's always bothered me. And so back then I was dreaming up of living off grid and Hawaii or Costa Rica, and was getting into some of the earlier stuff of permaculture as it became known. And yeah, I kind of had that in the back of my mind for most of my teens, and then into adulthood became more perplexed by it. But I was pursuing a career in music at that time, from the time I was basically 20 till I was 28. But it wasn't until I was 28 where I just said, okay, I'm done with music. I'm done with partying and doing all this stuff, living in Montreal. And I wanted to seriously pursue living on the land in some way or another. And that's what I'm doing now. It's just it took me 10 years to get to the place where I am now.
Right, which is not very long in the grand scheme of things. So
No,
that's
not really.
yeah. I also heard. I think I knew this in the background somewhere that you were a punk rocker. If we were in the same province, we probably would have ran into each other.
Oh, I was down at the St. Albert Hall. Is that what it is in Winnipeg?
Royal Albert.
The Royal Albert. Oh yeah, I was there playing shows at the Royal Albert 20
Right.
years ago.
What was your band?
Well, that band wasn't a punk rock band. My punk rock band really only toured the west coast of Canada and the US.
Okay.
That was a band called The Minute Falling. I was the lead singer, screaming my eyes out. But the band that I toured across Canada and the US with was called People for Audio. It was sort of like a instrumental post-rock band, long songs, odd time signatures, things like that. Music for musicians, as I call it.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no memory, but that's not because it wasn't memorable. It's because I wasn't necessarily all present in those days, let's say.
Well, yeah, I wasn't either. I remember playing at the Royal Albert and was fascinated on how they had this is the thing I specifically remember. It was an acrylic screen in front of the mixing board, because punk rockers would always drink beer and spit it all over the audience, and so they had to protect the mixing board from that. So that was my fond memories of Winnipeg back in the day.
There you go. Yeah, I didn't fit in at all. I didn't actually dress like a punk rocker. My boyfriend did. He had a club, so I had got a free ticket into that weird world.
Yeah.
Yep. So fun. And so the thing that we had planned to speak about in detail was the loss of your partner, Katie. And so I share this. I've never lost a partner, but I've lost both my parents to cancer, my grandmother's, but was it technically cancer? Maybe not really by that point. They both had cancer, but is that true even? Anyway, cancer aside, I see it very differently. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the darkness around death, but also, of course, the light, because they seem to come as a pair, those ones.
Yeah.
The traumas of loss, any rites of passage that have assisted you along the way, how that's changed your relationship with God, and even like nature, of course, being the highest expression of God.
Mm-hmm.
The intersection of now public and private life. I'm not using those in a lawful way or legal way, but just how that's changed for you. I know you've gone dark on social media, if you want to call it that. Not that you're dark, but it's dark. Yeah.
Not dark at all.
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. And how acceptance, which is the way that this stream is named, has been the biggest key for you, which I agree with. So yeah, I was very inspired by your interview yesterday, as I mentioned on the Lifestyle podcast. And do say hello in the chat, by the way. If I have time for it, I will definitely ask your questions if you have them. Nice to see you, Clayton. It's been a while. And so I'll start with the question, how has this changed you? And, there's a lot of different areas of life, like relationships, health, work, even finances, sacred purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's significantly changed me. Sometimes when I'm still grieving. I mean, the whole, I felt at the beginning of it, after the dust settled a little bit with, some of the formalities that had to happen with my wife and her passing, I felt strong in a way. I've always had this attitude, fake it till you make it. And it was always, you know, just put the image and the perception of strength and um confidence out there, and then that kind of, it helps you in a lot of ways in life, but with death, it's quite a bit different. And so I think I have been learning this in real time, and regrettably sharing it with the world. I kind of regret doing that, but at the same time, here we are. Because a bunch of, some negative consequences came of that. Not too many, but some. Putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, people like to latch on to vulnerabilities. There's a lot of haters out there and things like that. But I thought at that point, like I had a video that I put out in May about just kind of getting through it all. And I felt at that point, like, really strong, but to be totally forthcoming, like, that's changed. I think I'm doing good. Like, we're getting through it. My kids are well. We've lost, my partner, and they've lost their mom, and, that's not easy for anybody. But I guess overall, we've had a pretty good situation as far as, Katie's family is very close to us, and they've been all very involved and supportive. And so that's been good in that I'm not just completely alone, as a single parent. And with my two kids, I have Katie's brother who's here right now, hanging out with the kids while I do this podcast. And her mother has been very supportive and involved, and her other two siblings as well. So it's been the best of a worst situation. But to your question on how it's changed me, it's really made me understand at the deepest level that we are merely spiritual beings having a human experience, and that this experience in life, I believe that we choose it, and we choose our parents, and we choose the body we want to be born into, and we have to accept life as it comes, because life is not just a static experience where you just go through. I mean, maybe for some people who just plug themselves into the matrix and just go along to get along and all that. But if you're out there to live a great life, you're going to encounter great hardship and great success and love at the same time. But I find myself reminding myself and my children all the time that, we signed up for this, and we wanted the full human experience. And the full human experience involves death, suffering, and love and abundance, and being triumphant, and all of these things. The full human experience is everything in between. And so I think it's buttressed that viewpoint for me. If anything, it's basically made me that much more firm in that understanding, and the belief that Katie is now looking over us. My daughter sees her all the time as
Wow.
a silhouette appearing above us. And so we know that she's with us and a guardian angel to my kids. But yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey. But again, I remind myself daily that this is what we signed up for. This is life, and life is going to give you everything in between.
Yeah, it's really well said that I think you can play it kind of safe and not aspire to do anything great or extraordinary. And now I'm even rethinking as I speak this that maybe people don't suffer as much in that context, though loss is pretty universal, right?
Yeah.
You're going to lose loved ones. You're going to lose yourself. That's a given. Everything is going to pass. And it's something that, one of the things, I don't know if you experience this, but I've been working through it's like embarrassment about loss, which is very strange. I remember when my parents passed away within not even 2 years of each other, and it was just boom, boom, knock them down. And there was this strange, like, oh, but it's not of my doing. I didn't do anything wrong that they passed away. And can you relate to that in any way?
Oh, I mean, the stages of grief. Yeah, I mean, the first part of my healing journey with all of this was when I was at the funeral home, um, getting Katie cremated. And there was a little brochure there that just talked about the stages of grief. And I'm just sitting there waiting for the woman to get paperwork for me. And I'm just sitting there with my two kids, and we're picking an urn and all that. And I'm sitting there reading this brochure thing on the stages of grief. And, you read it, it's like, you're going to feel anger, you're going to feel mourning, you're going to feel regret, you're going to feel guilt, you're going to feel sadness, deep depression, all of these things. And I just remember going through that and being like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's what we're feeling every day. And so let's try to be like water and let it all flow through us. And so that is to first accept all these stages, but then secondly to let them move through us. So take the anger, feel the anger, but let it move through you. Don't dwell on it. Take all of those feelings, and that was the first, I guess that was the first acceptance stage of my grieving, in that by about mid-May, I actually felt quite good. Like not good as in I lost my wife. Oh, I feel great. No, just in that we're no longer in the trenches of the pain that she was going through, and that having to be a caretaker, which I was for an entire year, and really full on the last 4 months of her life, that, it was that was gone now. And so there was some relief there. And then, you're kind of, it's day by day, when you lose somebody that's significant in your life, it's day by day. And so I was kind of going, okay, yeah, I think I'm better. My daughter asked me, the second day after Katie passed, she asked me if I wanted to have more children. And if, and then I had this kind of long conversation with my daughter being like, well, yeah, I mean, it's possible, because she asks, like, is it, can you have more kids now that mom's gone, dad? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, technically I can. I've been very straightforward with my children from the beginning. Both Katie and I were about sex and reproduction and all of that. And so that conversation wasn't uncomfortable, but it was, she felt that I needed to move on. And this was 2 days after Katie passed. And at that point I wasn't like ready to do that, but I did sit on that for a couple months. And I kind of realized then that it was important. Why would my wife want me to not have a partner and not have a mother figure in the lives of my children? And so, I kind of decided fairly early on that I was going to move on and do that. And yeah, I manifested a woman that is pretty much the perfect fit for myself and my kids. And I've done that, but it doesn't mean that I've completely moved on from the passing of my wife. It's just that I've moved forward in my life and decided to do that. She hasn't moved in or anything yet. It's still a bit of a long distance thing happening, but that's the plan eventually. And it's all been part of it. And I thought, even when I was down doing Luke Stories podcast, that was filmed in June. I felt a lot different then than I do now. It's there's waves of grief. It comes and goes. It's different now than it was when it was fresh, because it's not like I'm sitting around. Not like it's a shock. The thing with Katie's passing, it was a long run up to it. I mean, you and I were talking on the phone, and thank you for those phone calls early on and trying to help me with solutions. We were mourning Katie, a month before she passed, because it was clear where things were going. And it's different when you lose somebody in, say, a car crash, and one day they're there and the next day they're gone. It's a completely different type of trauma. It's a totally different type of experience. When you're at somebody's bedside and you're seeing them wither away for a long period of time, it's a different experience. And talk to anybody who's been through that, and they'll tell you that it's not like losing a loved one in a car crash. It's very different. And so Yeah, there's all these stages, but essentially for myself, first just going deep into those stages of grief and accepting them and letting them move through me was definitely the first phase of my healing with all of it, as well as my kids and Katie's family.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting on those stages. Embarrassment isn't one of them. So it might be something unique to my experience. Now, having said that, you were private about it, and
When
I
it was
only
going down, I never told
Mhm.
anybody publicly. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and I only knew because we were having some private conversations. And what was that decision for you? I mean, I obviously respect it, but I'm just curious. What was that decision to not let on what you were going through?
You know what it was? It was the truth community for the most part, in some ways, is annoying in that everybody thinks they know everything because they're a truther. Do you know what I mean? It's kind
I
of
do
like
actually.
during the
Yeah.
COVID thing, everybody thought they had the answer. Cancer is really annoying in the truth community, as you know very well. Um, and that my thinking was, if I put this out publicly as it's going on, I'm just going to be constantly inundated with people telling me that they have the solution for me. And um, you and I are connected in a lot of the same social circles. I know a lot of doctors. I know a lot of alternative healers, and that's the path Katie wanted to go. She didn't want to do anything allopathic. And so, I already had all the resources that I needed. What do I need to put it out to my YouTube audience and hear what random anonymous people on the internet have to say? That would be annoying. And, I didn't go and put a crowdfunding campaign out there. I probably could have, and probably would have saved myself $100,000, because to try to go through the natural method of healing from cancer is extraordinarily expensive. And, I could have just thrown her into the Canadian medical system and said, hey, you pay for it, government. But that's not what we did, except in the end when we had no choice but to go to the hospital in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, so that's why I didn't want to, because I just don't care about random people online's opinions. And that's a big part of the reason why I've taken a step back from social media in general, is that for me at this juncture in my life personally, but also where we're at um, in the macro of society, I just don't care what people online have to say anymore. Like, it's just, I've been in this space for 11, I've been posting online for 11 years. And I guess I've seen the best and the worst of it. I've certainly, all in all, by and large, 95% of my interactions online are positive and great, and people are awesome. But there's 5% that has a way to cut through, that it's just when you're in a time of desperation, it's like the last thing you want to hear. And
Mhm,
so that's why I didn't talk about it at the time, and I kept it to myself. All my friends and family knew, but I didn't feel any reason to put it out to the public. And I know some people do, right? So this is how the world we live in is. Everybody just wants to have 15 minutes of fame. And I guess because I'd already done that, it was the last thing that I wanted. I kind of just wanted privacy over everything else.
mhm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a policy. I don't know. There's been the odd time I go against it, but I will share my hardships and my mistakes and my fall downs, but usually after I solve them,
Hmm.
not during,
Yeah.
because it's exactly what you said. They come out of the woodwork. Everybody's got the answer to your problem. They're very sure of it. They can be aggressive and mean with it too.
Very,
Like,
very.
the very very strange
Oh
thing.
yeah. Especially for us people like yourself and myself that put ourselves out online. Is um, when people have a two-dimensional relationship with you, i.e., through a screen, they think they know you, and they think they have sort of a right to real estate with you. And it's not easy. Being a public figure is not easy. And you really, people think that they can just talk to you as if you're not a real person, and that's not an easy thing to deal with. And for me, the full year, it was a full year of dealing with that with Katie. Well, actually, it was technically 11. It was like 2 weeks shy of a year, that from the time that we began that journey, knowing that she had this tumor growing in her breast. Um, it's just, yeah, it's the last thing I want to hear from is random people. Like I have. you and I have a lot of the same friends. So I already had the best people to advise me. Alex Zeck's a good buddy of mine. No better guy to know than to say, hey, what about this doctor? What about that doctor? And I went through probably maybe a half dozen or slightly more different practitioners and tried all kinds of different things. And I feel like we gave it everything we could with and it was all about what Katie wanted, like, I had no agency over her decisions except to the very end when she was losing consciousness. And then I had to, but up until that point, she was in the driver's seat the whole way. She just told me what she wanted to do, and I made the calls. I'm a guy who's just out there solving problems day in and day out. That's what I do as a consultant. It's what I've always done online. And so, when this problem came at me, I just felt like I was going to work and doing the things that I needed to do. And she wanted me to do this, buy this, pay this doctor, buy this protocol, this, that, and the other. I spared no expense. And I spent, endless hours every day doing it. And that's kind of why I wasn't posting much in that year. I was posting on Twitter. I could go on Twitter Spaces and things like that were convenient because I could just do them whenever. But I wasn't live streaming much or doing anything that required a schedule because my life was her, number one, and I would do things here and there in between when I had time. And I felt, I'm such a social guy that I had a lot of I spent a lot of time doing Twitter Spaces and stuff like that over the winter because I like to talk to people, and it was sort of therapy for me in a way. We're just going and talking and riffing with a bunch of guys on stuff and interesting subjects, and it helped me kind of get through what was going on at home in many ways.
Very good. Yeah, there was actually a time after I went through my cancer journey, and I was finding a way to come back into the world that was not just a yoga teacher or meditation teacher, which was my gig. And I was working with someone to see, okay, who could my audience be that would be a really good fit for me? So I stopped blasting out that, this is for everybody. And so we came up with this. It didn't have much longevity, but it had enough of a time in my life to be very poignant. And one of the things that happens when you're down, so maybe more from Katie's perspective, is that you have a lot of caregivers, and you have to. Sometimes there was a list of 20 people that I could rotate and call in an emergency on, or just ask for help with often basic needs and stuff like that. And the bigger the list, the better, so you don't burn any one particular person out. And I remember overhearing conversations that my mom and dad had, and they were so stressed. I ended up ultimately moving in with them, and they became the full-time caregivers, but mostly my mom, because that's more of a according a woman's kind of work anyway. So just seeing through the lens of the caregiver and the incredible stress that they're under, it really wasn't a great, if you want to call it, niche for the work that I did, because caregivers are so tied up. You give them 5 minutes, like respite, which a lot of people end up getting. Some, these days there are services like that. And then they're going to go and go shopping and do their laundry. And they're going to, they're not going to stop to take care of themselves, because in the hierarchy of needs, there are pressing things.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if you want to say anything more about the life of.
Yeah, well, that was it, well, just in that the hierarchy of needs is all of a sudden gone for myself in a way, because it's all about keeping mom alive, Katie alive. And I say mom just because it was so with my children, and we were all so involved with it the whole way. But we went from having Katie, a super mom who did everything, like everything a mom can do, Katie did to an extraordinary level. Cooking, the homestead chores, everything that needed to be done in the household, she did to an extraordinary level. She was a very ambitious entrepreneur for many years as a photographer, doing sort of corporate photography and things like that, and leading shoots. And She hired people. She had people working underneath her. She was a super ambitious entrepreneur. And she thought she wanted to keep doing that when she became a mom. But 6 months into after our first, she realized that she didn't want to. And she basically put all of that gusto that she had as an entrepreneur into being a mom. And so when she started to get sick, that was gone. It was no more incredible home cooked meals from mom. It was dad trying to scratch it out, trying to just like do the best I can with her brother. And her mother actually showed up and was here for 4.5 months, which was unbelievably helpful. But that was, the hierarchy of needs for myself is, and the family in a large part was gone because we're just trying to get her better, and so it was a complete flip on its head, the life that we knew, to a transitionary period to now where we are now, where we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out what life is like without mom, knowing that, hey, we haven't eaten the things that we would normally eat. Katie would make meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that were unbelievable, from the garden, and everything was just so perfect. And we're getting there, but it's the whole thing was flipped on its head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it becomes a sort of like emergency lifestyle, right? Where
Mhm.
you're always troubleshooting and making up for the loss, or not the loss, but the part that's not there.
Yep.
And especially
Yep.
since your role was so big. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, so let's go, if you don't mind, let's go right into the depths. And I know for a fact, as I'm opening this conversation, that there are no matters of fact, in
Yeah.
it. It's a matter of mystery. And I did hear you talking yesterday about the using the words, and please forgive me if this feels challenging in any way, because all you're hearing is my own internal kind of a thing going on. And I'll say it personally. People would come to me after I survived cancer, and they would go, "Oh, that was so meant to be that you went through cancer, so that now you can be teaching like this, coaching like this, giving of your experience and helping others." And it was tempting to just take that and go, "Oh yeah, meant to be, meant to be." But internally, I know it wasn't really the truth of it. There were many mistakes. I didn't need to get sick with a stage 4 lymphoma. There were
Yeah.
signs. There
Yeah.
were times when I could have got off that train wreck that I was headed for,
Yeah.
and I didn't. And so how I've framed it doesn't mean there aren't things that are meant to be, but how I framed it now is that anything that's happened in my life that's been a mistake or a train wreck, or some kind of like, just lack of knowledge, lack of judgment, lack of the right kind of input, that we don't have a lot to turn to. You may have people with certain kind of skills, but nobody guides through death in
Yeah.
with any skill that I'm aware. I could be totally unaware of that. And then, so yeah, this meant to be, it's to me always, I'll take the thing that happened, and then I will make good on it, usually by unpacking it, doing the foundational healing in myself, and then seeing, now what could I offer others that could help
Mhm.
them not make this mistake or not get in so much trouble.
Yeah.
Like, and then last thing I'll say before I let you go here is that Shakespeare, I'm not even a fan of Shakespeare. I think there's a fair amount psyoped in there, and he was an elite guy. This is just like not even research based, just a feeling. But he did was it in Macbeth or something like that? He talked about untimely death being, I think it was being untimely ripped from the womb, talking about an abortion or something like that. And is there, in your experience now, having been so close with death, do you feel like there are right deaths versus wrong deaths, timely deaths versus untimely deaths, meaningful deaths versus
I
meaningless
mean,
deaths?
you know, that's a tough one. I've experienced three significant deaths in my life, and I think the prior two gave me a certain level of strength to be where I am today after Katie's passing. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But I can like, so when I was 18 years old, just graduated high school, I watched my best friend Josh die in a diving accident. I was there. He hit the water and drowned. Took 2 weeks to find the body. I was there with a group of friends. We were traumatized for years, and
Wow.
it took a lot to get over that, especially to witness it and try to save him, and we couldn't. And the second death that was significant for me was my father, and I was at his bedside as well during the COVID show. That was very difficult, but I found a lot of strength in that one. There was a significant thing that happened to me in that year is that I delivered my son, and then I was there to witness my father's death. And so it was kind of like a full circle. And my son looks exactly like my dad, which is a trip.
Wow.
And so those two were significant in my life. I mean, of course, we've all experienced many deaths. I've had friends that have died and things like that. But those two, Josh and my dad, were significant. And then with Katie, um, you know, I can't help but feel that there was a divine purpose to it. But does that mean that it could have gone the other way? Maybe. Ultimately, Katie, I believe now, everybody in her family also believes this, is that she endured some trauma when she was younger, as many people do, especially women. It's very common. Uh, and she never really got over it. And she never really sought therapy or anything like that that would have helped her unpack that and deal with that. She never did. And it wasn't until really the last year of her life that became more and more obvious, that the trauma that she had endured as a child that she never dealt with was impacting her health. And it was actually, Katie was on face value, she was a wonderful woman that everybody loved. She could really be super host. She could impress. She was beautiful. But on the flip side, at home, there were moments where it was absolute hell on earth in her mind, and that came out to us. And it was a year ago where Katie was having a fit, essentially, where she would spiral um, into a sort of uncontrollable rage. Where I took both my kids and I said, let's go for a walk. Let's give mom some space. And I'm walking down one of our paths on our property with the kids, and my daughter says to me, she's like, "Dad, do you think mom's gonna die?" And I was like, "No," because this was well before anything significant was unraveling with the cancer. Like, yeah,
Wow.
she had this little tumor forming, but this was we were no there were no conversations about mom passing at that point. I mean, we were completely confident that we would be able to see through this and all this. But Violet, who has really, especially since Katie's passed, she's a real intuitive. She's a real gifted. She sees spirits. She can commune with the other side. She has vivid dreams and things like this. But so she said that, and part of me, I could spend a lifetime trying to unpack and question all these things, but part of me just kind of throws it all out and just says, does it matter? I don't know. I don't know if it matters. Could we have saved her? Maybe. Was it fate? Maybe. I don't know. I think part of the great thing in life is just being comfortable in the unknown and just kind of letting it unfold for the full human experience, like I said earlier. And so I don't really spend a lot of time on that. There are moments in my grieving that I do, no question. There are moments where I still find myself being angry at her, actually, going like, because we had one practitioner that was a very well-known German new medicine doctor who told us in August of last year what we were not expecting, which was, I think you should go and get that tumor removed. And Katie was livid that she said that. And at the time, I was like, well, maybe she's right. Like, maybe we should do that. And again, I'm not here to tell people what's right or wrong. Like, I'm not, that's why I'm not coming out and advocating for one thing or the other. Though I'll express my opinion on the matter, but I mean, take it for what it's worth. And so, yeah, I just kind of let go of that and trying to, I don't know. I guess I'm at peace in the unknown.
That's perfect. That's exactly what it all comes down to. If you try to say anything on these subjects with any, as a claim and be in your conviction, it isn't real. We really can't say. So thank you for even approaching that question. I appreciate that. Do you want to talk about any beliefs and cosmology that may have shifted? Now, we're off in the realm of not making claims of any kind, but everyone has their own relationship with life and death, and
Mm-hmm.
it is shown that people who have some kind of a system of what happens after death actually have a much easier time
Yeah.
through the death process. So
Yeah. I would say my beliefs spiritually have not changed, but have been buttressed by and strengthened by the whole experience. My belief has always been that there's the grand source, which is, some people say God, unified field, whatever it is. I don't really care to get caught up in semantics because I don't care to identify with any particular dogmatic belief system. I just go, this is what feels right in my heart. And I guess I've been fortunate in the experiences that I've had with death in my life, especially since Josh passed when I was 18. It really set a foundation of spiritual understanding for me that came from my heart. And I've followed that ever since. And after my dad passed, it made it even stronger. Birthing or being present for the birth of my children, I co-delivered. We had midwives, but I co-delivered my children with my bare hands when they were born, and held them on my chest, and did all of that. The natural birth that really strengthened my beliefs in the Creator and creation. But yeah, my belief has been for a very long time is that there's the source, and we're just sort of like loops that come out of the source, like a drop hits the water and it comes back into the water. And when a drop lands on the surface of the water, a drop comes out from the reflection or the reaction of the water and ripples from that, and then that you go into life, and then you go back to source. And so that's always been my belief fundamentally, ever since I was aware of, I'd say probably in my late teens, that understanding. And that's what I truly believe. And that what I believe is that we have contracts that go back to the spirit realm. And my belief is with my wife is that we had a spiritual contract to meet early on. We were friends in high school, and I had a huge crush on her when I was 18. And I was just this guy who was obsessed with her, and she had another boyfriend who had a car and a pizza delivery job, so he had more game than me at the time. But we got to know each other then, and then we came back 15 years later, fell in love, and then built the partnership that lasted until she passed. That we had a spiritual contract to go about that way, and that there was going to be lessons, and she was going to set us up and set the kids up for a strong foundation to move on to another, to the other realm. And her trauma that she couldn't heal from was part of that, and it was part of her journey, and that she was needed on the other side, and she was here to fulfill the thing that she fulfilled, which was to get us to where we are now. All the stuff you see behind me, all this stuff, everything that I've done in the last 10 years None of it would have been possible without her, because, I've always been this hardworking, ambitious entrepreneur, but I would never have been able to accomplish any of it without a wife supporting me and being there for our children and all of that. And so that's kind of what I believe. And it's sort of a reincarnation type belief. I have a very, like, when I was younger, I used to just get in arguments because I used to be obsessed with religion, and I would get in all these religious debates all the time. And I just got so tired of it. It's like, who cares? What do I care what somebody else believes? I don't give a shit. And what do I care if they believe what I believe? I don't care. It doesn't make any difference in my life whatsoever. So I've had these beliefs, and I'm content with them, and I'm not out to tell people what's right or wrong. I just say, this is what I believe, and take it or leave it.
Very good. Very good. Just a quick aside. Is there anybody in the chat? I'm actually not able to log into my YouTube because I've got one deleted channel. It keeps thinking I'm trying to get in there, and there might be some trouble in the chat there.
It seems to be working okay. I can see it.
You're right. It's just the last two comments look a little weird to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I can't do anything about it at this moment.
Right.
Yeah, so if anyone has a wrench, I'm sure there's some peoples out there that do. Maybe even Clayton. Yeah, I can open and see, but I can't interact with anything. No, Amos doesn't have. Darn, I don't think anyone has a wrench that's in the chat. If you are in the chat and you could come and assist, that would be awesome. Or you can come in the chat is what I meant to say. So yeah, that's beautiful. It's I watch people. It's the same thing. If someone has a cosmology that's actually working for them and comforts them and makes them a kind human being, and then what to argue with?
Exactly.
Right. There were times when I saw my grandma's spirituality, for example. It really did work for her. I think she probably would have had a much more terrible life by far. And I didn't agree, and then I did agree, and then I didn't agree, and then long after 20 years after she's passed, all of a sudden there I am reclaiming my Christian roots, and that only took about, I don't know, 2 years to wear off as well, because it's just such a weird space to try to be in. I know I lost friends over that myself as well. But yeah, it's just a live and let live. However we make sense of the world and how things work. The beauty is that in the end, all of the truth boils down to one truth, and you can hear it. That's what I started doing, is like, rather than looking for the ways that people were off according to me, I started looking for all of those common threads and the way that they're probably using different language to describe the same kind of inner experience. Because even though it's in the realm of the unknown, but we can still share that, right? That might be the definition of fellowship, that I can hear you speak with different words, but you're reminding me of what I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Here's one more along the same lines that I wanted to talk about on the esoteric side, and then I want to talk about another, just around the mechanics and the means and the whole medical side of everything as well. I'd like to get into, but what would you say the meaning of pain is, especially now?
Yeah, that's a tough one. We had a lot of pain for a long time.
Yeah, you were saying Katie's pain in the last months was like a 24/7.
In the last 4 months, it was unimaginable. I never in my life experienced anything like that. It's hard to find meaning in that because it caused so much suffering for our family. It was very difficult for the kids at that time because she was essentially in pain 20 hours a day. There was maybe over a 24-hour period, there were pockets where she would fall asleep for 30 minutes here and there, kind of thing. and then she wouldn't be in pain. But it was so bad that, we moved into our house in December. And so she had the last, few months of her life in this house, a lot more comfortable, beautiful view from our bedroom. But it got to the point where, especially in the last 2.5 months, where myself and my kids were all sleeping downstairs because we couldn't even be upstairs and make a noise that would set her off. And then it was screaming in pain. She didn't want to take painkillers. And so we were using some homeopathic remedies that did provide some level of relief. There were some natural things like willow bark and my God, there were so many supplements and things. I forget all of them. But there were some things that we did that provided some pain relief. But once the pain level started to reach 7, 8, 9 out of 10, they provided no relief. And so as the time moved on closer to her passing, the pain got worse and worse. And then that's essentially where, the last 2 weeks of her life, her lungs were filling with fluid and we just had to go to the hospital. There was really no other choice. But the meaning of pain, I don't know. Maybe it's something to knock some sense into you, or attempt to, or to refine your will to see through short-term suffering for long-term enlightenment, perhaps. But I don't know. I don't know. I think that's probably one that's going to take me years to unpack and understand.
I hear you. And it won't be one meaning either. This is my experience that you really have to look at each pain, whether it's, psychic, mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical. You have to take it on its own in that moment. That if you have, so in a way, the question's not fair, because if you have a policy around pain, then it's not going to work in every circumstance. It's not like that. That's very simplistic. I mean, that's why I can't stand German New Medicine. Forgive me, because it says, "Oh, this symptom, this thing means this." It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like that at
No, I
all. This
know. I find it rigid as well. But having done all of these different protocols that we had done, I think the truth is somewhere in between. But I also think the place that a lot of people fail in understanding things like cancer is they don't understand context. They don't understand time and place. And this is where that's again, going back to when you asked me why weren't you public about it when it was going on, is because I knew that nobody is going to understand context, time, and place. So they're going to say, "Oh, you need to get on the fenbizanol and ivermectin protocol, and that's going to cure your cancer." And maybe it would cure somebody's cancer if it made sense for the context, time, and place.
No,
But it
no, it
didn't
was.
for us. We did that, and it didn't do anything.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, overall, I think as I look back at all of it, the number one thing is the emotional trauma. Is that if that would have been dealt with a long time before, I think our journey may have been different. Because I have seen things like, for example, I had a tumor forming in my chest right here, and about 2 weeks after Katie passed, I really started to, it was sticking out quite a bit. It was about a 3/8 of an inch sticking out. It was a bump. And because I'd been under so much traumatic stress up until that point, I was like, fuck, this is something forming in me. Like, what is this, But because I went through and accepted all of these stages of grief, and this is my belief. I mean, somebody else might have a different opinion on the matter. That's fine. But that tumor is gone. It's completely gone. Like, I can't even feel it anymore. Up until about even a month and a half ago, I could feel it as about a millimeter. I could kind of like roll it in my skin, but it's completely gone now. And so
Fantastic.
I attribute that to my acceptance with going through the stages of grief and letting all of these emotions flow through like water, and feeling the anger, taking the anger, but resolving the anger. One thing Katie and I did very well as a couple, and this helped us with our children, was that No couples are perfect. All couples fight. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. But one thing we did very well is when we would fight or have disagreements, we would make sure that our children witnessed us resolving the issue.
Mm.
And so for me, that same thing is how I've resolved and been able to express the grief and let it move through me, is that I allow myself to feel the resolution. Yes, I can feel angry. Yes, I can feel like she abandoned us, but I explore that and then I let it move through me. And so I think that's been my biggest tool in my toolkit of experiencing grief over this period.
That's beautiful and so wise, because if you're going to let people like your children or your public or whatever in on the problem, then you better let them in on the resolution of the problem. I'll
Exactly.
always go back if I did have an accident and I felt a little like, okay, I'm going to need some prayers. I'm not normally going to be putting that kind of thing out there, but when I hurt my back, I was just like, I can barely walk, and could appreciate some energy your way. And I actually had a miraculous recovery, not because I'm so miraculous. I think it was a retracing of an old injury. It came up very strong. I really didn't have there was no event. Nothing hit me. I didn't do anything so wrong. I was pulling a potato plant out of soft ground. It's like not, it wasn't cause for an injury, but I couldn't walk. I couldn't lay over or like turn over in bed. It was so intense and severe for about 36 hours. And then all of a sudden, I started to have this huge recovery curve. By, 4 or 5 hours after that mark, I'm 80% better. In 5 days, I'm 100% better for something where like days ago I couldn't walk. So yeah, I think what you're saying, just in terms of resolution. So I went right back to the post and said, hey guys, I feel great. Thank you so much. Just like, so nobody also is holding me in that picture that like Beth is in trouble or something like that. That's the worst thing, because it really does matter how you bring about other people's perception and the effect that has on you. So yeah, just wanted to wave that
Yeah.
a little bit. So I would like to talk about natural health, because this is something that I will admit now, you and I haven't talked too much in detail since Katie's passing, but it was definitely a lens I was seeing things through as you were sharing privately, which I appreciate. And one of the biggest indoctrinations I think that we suffer in this world, and I'm very curious about your experience, your beliefs, is that natural equals healthy. Right. So now I only know this because I was watching the Luke Story interview, but that say Katie, and if I'm making any assumptions, please correct me, but Katie rejected any, like even Tylenol or
Everything,
painkillers.
everything pharma, everything allopathic. Yeah.
Right. But would use, as you already named, some of the natural things and plus cannabis, for, I'm assuming for pain killing and, helping with the mental state and everything like that. And to me, this is one of the most damaging lies weaponized against people who go for natural health, that we think natural equals healthy, and it is not true.
No, because you can poison yourself with all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'm not even now at this point, because when we went to the hospital, post COVID, Katie and I had a massive lack of trust against anything allopathic. But when we went to the hospital, I was actually blown away how non-judgmental they were and how genuinely sincere and kind the nurses were, despite the fact that they're all jabbed and I could make all these kinds of judgments about them. I was actually very surprised. And so I'm not even opposed to certain allopathy these days, especially in terms of traumatic injury. I mean, I think that most people would agree with me on that. You break a leg, going to the hospital, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have chronic illness, don't expect much from the hospital. I still believe that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent where I talk shit about all of these particular protocols that we did, but there was a lot of them that were just, in my opinion, absolutely fucking pointless. And there was a constant, especially in the last 4 months, me trying to convince Katie to just like, come on, is this thing necessary? You're doing this thing, 8 hours a day in protocols. You're doing so many protocols that you're not getting good sleep because you're not resting. It was things like that were very frustrating. And so, yeah, I do share your opinion there, and that natural doesn't equal healthy, but that's an easy kind of logical fallacy to take apart, because it's not, correlation is not causation, and so it's yeah, you can poison yourself with all kinds of things, and we did. I mean, the supplements alone, I mean, we spent tens of thousands of dollars on supplements for a year, tens of thousands. Like the total bill was shocking, with all the protocols and the supplements and all these things. And I just don't know if any of them actually did anything. And but what do I know? I don't, like I said earlier, I guess I've become more comfortable in the unknown with all this, but I just feel that, yeah, just because something's natural and not pharmaceutical doesn't mean it's going to be good for you. And I could witness this with my own eyes, that a lot of these things that we were doing were just not working. And her siblings agreed. And we had to have, on multiple occasions, sort of these interventions to be like, look, you're spending so much time on this. I'm spending so much money on it. That was never an issue. I was willing to go into debt to the end to save her. And I did take on a good amount of debt to save her, to try to save her. But so that was never an issue, but it was just like, we're putting all this effort in, you're doing all these things, and they don't seem to change anything. It wasn't until we started cutting things out that things started to seem to look like they were going better for a period of time. But unfortunately, the thing that we didn't have was time, because her breast cancer metastasized, and then that's when it became really deadly, because it moved into her lungs, and then from there it went into her spleen and her spine ultimately. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. A lot of people have the luxury of playing in natural health because they don't have a lot of big problems. And, I've made it a policy now. I will never take health advice from a young person because they haven't seen over the decades, right? It's easy for a 20-year-old to go, oh, fembendazole and
Oh my God.
ivermectin, and these are the truther drugs. Never take them. They never do cure anything. They just simply
So
delay.
annoying.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Methylene blue and all this bullshit.
Exactly.
It's just so
Exactly.
obnoxious.
I know.
Yeah, the thing that's funny about the sort of the truther space, and as a guy who's been in that for 25 years, I can tell you, sometimes truthers are more psyoped than normies. In that there's always this thing that they do where it's like take what's going on in the news right now. And I'm so glad that I exited social media 2.5,
Just
3
in
weeks
time.
ago, just in time to get away from all the bullshit that's going on
I
now.
know. I know. It's giving
And
me a big break.
I'm not even paying attention to it, but I know what's going on is that all these truthers come out and go, this is what happens, and I'm going to draw a line in the sand. And if you believe this, you're a sellout, you're a loser, blah, blah, blah. This is what they do. It's part of the division strategy. And that
Exactly.
the trifecta that the New World Order use, in my opinion, is divide, demoralize, and distract. And truthers fall for that shit all the time, because look at all these truthers that you and I know. They're probably out there on social media with the latest commentary about what their opinion on the matter is right now. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Because you're falling victim to distraction, division, and demoralization. And that's exactly what that event that transpired a week or so ago has done. And this is where, as long as they get you in a hamster wheel doing this, spinning wheels, It doesn't matter what your opinion is. As long as you're
Exactly.
spinning wheels, that's all that matters.
That's
And
right.
so you fall in victim to the distract, demoralize, and divide of it all. And yeah, it's so prevalent in the health community. It drives me crazy. But that's, yeah, I guess I'm so burnt out on it now after what I've been through with my wife over the last year that I'm just, I don't know. I just want to do my thing, just build and do positive things in my life. And I don't really care about what everybody else is saying anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. So 2 more questions, if you have time for them. I wanted to ask, well, 3, if it's okay. Then, what do you no longer worry about? You just actually talked about a big part of it. You're no longer worried about the latest division, distraction, and division
So
and
this
psyop,
division to demoralize. Yeah. I
demoralization.
kind of
Yeah.
made that up, but yeah, that's what I observe.
The DDG wheel. Yeah. Yeah. What are you no longer worrying about since Katie's
I
passed?
am just no longer giving a shit about any of the minutia with anything because, like I've been on this truther journey for 25 years. I drove when my dad was driving me to college in the year 2000. We were driving 4 hours to Nelson, which is where I went to music school and studied music composition, where he explained he gave me the massive red pill. He told me about the money printing, the Federal Reserve, um, and the Illuminati and the Freemasons and all that kind of esoteric shit. And then I was watching Jordan Maxwell videos for 20 years, but I just don't care about any of that shit anymore. Because once you know the big game, and my personal belief is that, like we talked about it earlier, and that if we're all spiritual beings having a spiritual experience, the people in the Illuminati and the Cabal are no different. They just know things that you don't know, and they want to keep you from that information. Why? So that you don't understand your true potential. And so for myself, knowing the big game, in that the reason they put so much effort to control the narrative, because it's like you have to ask yourself the question is, if they could just wipe us out or just throw us in a gulag, why wouldn't they do that? Why do they spend so much effort in controlling the narrative to get you to believe certain things so that you can consent? And from my observation, it's another trifecta, is that they need you alive so that you can believe, so that you can consent. So that's why they don't wipe us out. Because if they could wipe us out, they could do it easily. They could just do it. But they don't, because we're actually part of the spiritual whole. Our belief creates the path for them to create the world that they create in their image, but they need us to do it. That's why they need us alive. That's why they don't just kill us. And so now that I know that, all the minutia just doesn't, it's irrelevant. Like your theory on whether the earth is flat or not is irrelevant. Your theory on who killed Charlie Kirk, or was he killed, is it a psyop? It doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? If you're not creating abundance and positivity in your life, you're not contributing to a better world. All you're doing is spinning this fucking endless hamster wheel that serves the cabal, whether you're a truther or not. People don't realize that if you're an agent of division and distraction and demoralization, I don't care if you're a truther or not, you're serving the will of the New World Order. And there's a lot of truthers out there who you think are truthers that do that. All they do is talk shit, infight, and divide people. And so if that's what you're doing, you're on their side, whether you know it or not. And so for me, I just don't care about any of that shit because it doesn't matter. All that matters is what you create today in this life as we know it now. That's all that matters. Your opinion on any matter is irrelevant. How are you living? It's like when we were talking earlier about our spiritual beliefs, like you said eloquently, you said that you don't care about a person's beliefs if those beliefs help them be a better human today, and you can feel and experience that. That's all that matters, because that's everything. It's here and now. And so, yeah, I just don't care about any of the minutia anymore. I just think it's irrelevant. And because I do spend time I teach people law in the private. You're going to be at one of my workshops coming up.
Hmm.
And one thing I help a lot of truthers kind of come around to things, because I say, look, every conspiracy theory is real. It's all true. But what are you going to do with that information today? And how is it going to change your life here and now? So whether the latest theory about this, that, and the other is true or not, it doesn't matter. It's what will you do with that information to mobilize positivity and love in your life now? Because if it's not mobilizing love or positivity in your life, you're serving the devil. And so I think so many truthers are so psyoped, they have no idea, because they're stuck in these holding patterns where they just have to defend positions constantly, which is just stupid. It's just a waste of time. So for me, I just don't care about any minutia. All I care about is the big picture.
Nice. That's beautiful. When I was in India, my first years, I was traveling with a lot of different foreigners, including Israelis, and they would often go to India after serving in the military, their obligatory service. And they would always criticize, especially the Canadians, for being so petty. And they didn't have petty concerns. And they explained it to me. They said, like my best friend got his legs blown off when I was 6 or something, and like they just don't have small problems. And that's the beauty, like the strange beauty of going through, big
Pain and
big pain,
suffering.
big loss,
Yeah.
big traumas, exactly. And that's what I remember, that in the times of my life, say when I was sick with cancer, people would tell me like, "Oh, you're glowing." And certain people, not everyone could be around me. A lot of people didn't have the courage to do that. God bless them anyway. But those that did would notice there was some, things that I was different. I wasn't getting involved with every little irritation or problem or things like that. And there's a big gift in that.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that yeah, I mean, it was a combination of events that happened to me that made me decide to get offline a couple 3 weeks ago. But ultimately it was my wife that wanted me to years ago, but I just couldn't, because I had kind of pigeonholed myself where I had to be an online creator, and that was all I was doing. I used to be a consultant for many years on farms, but when Freedom Farmers, my main company, which I'm now back 100% in control of, which is very liberating. But for a period of time, I wasn't in control of it. And so I had to be careful what I said online to some degree, at least through Freedom Farmers. And but my wife wanted me to get offline, because she was like, look at this bullshit. You get wrapped up with these stupid arguments with people that don't know anything about you. And it's like, who cares? And she was right. And so I guess I've realized that now more than ever, that there's a lot of dark forces out there now, especially trying to get a hold of people's consciousness and get them stuck in that division, divide, and demoralize wheel. Because now, with the way the algorithm has set itself up, and because, the dead internet theory, I don't know if you're familiar with that theory, this is all coming out, this is playing out right now. And that the internet is just becoming this toxic garbage dump of asking you to be the worst version of yourself. And that's what the algorithm wants. That's why if you go on X, like I find X the most difficult social media to actually look at anymore, is it's just death and destruction. The feed is just horrible. Like I went on there the other day just to look. Like I'm not commenting or engaging anything in it anymore, but I went on there to look. The first video I see is a fucking guy having his head cut off in Texas.
Nice.
Horrible. Like, thank God my children weren't sitting next to me to see that. But this is the world that we're in. I believe that it's a cliche to say, but I do believe there is sort of an awakening happening, because I can witness it in my day-to-day life in the real world. And the internet is there to prevent you from it. And it's got a litany of services and privileges and benefits to pull you in, to get you back into that DDD wheel, as I like it, your friend Amos says. I like that. And that's the game right now, is prevent people from waking up, get them caught in the minutia, get them caught up in the he said, she said, and the pointless drawing a line in the sand. If you believe this and you're not a flat earther, you're a total fucking sellout, blah, blah, blah. This is what truthers do day in and day out. But it's like you said earlier, look at the life of the individual. Look at what they're doing. Are they creating abundance in their life? Are they creating goodwill? Are they doing these things that create a world that I want to participate in or not? And if they're not, then I don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like you said, the algorithms and the popularity and everything sides towards all of the negative. Right? Like I've never been able to get any traction for what I'm doing, although I always appreciate my audience. So just so you guys know that.
And there are people out there that do it. There are people that, like, I've had the majority of experiences I've had online, and as a result of me and my career, I've met many, many great people. It's just that there's something really dark about the trolls and their ability to cause harm. And there's a lot of content creators out there today that do that. They're literally out there to cause harm, and they use gang stalking techniques and all kinds of things like this. And it's a very dark place. And there's a way that they can cut through. But at the same time, the flip side of that is if you can just look at it objectively and go, the internet is just this fake world, then who fucking cares? Then it's actually quite liberating. Then you can kind of go back and look at it and be like, whatever. It's not real.
Right. And you can be real.
Yeah.
You be real. Like, because there is the capacity, the written word can reflect some truth inside yourself, not the way we use the word truth in the truther world. But, it still holds all. I have a very childlike optimism, which may, I'm sure, not be true for our future, the way it's looking to go, but that every tool, like, it's just a hammer, and it can be used for good and not good. So. So I'd love to ask you this. Feel free on this question, whether you want to go into it. And it is a little bit in the back of my mind, just say after Katie's passing, with no judgment from my side whatsoever about, wanting to move on and find a new partner and all of that kind of thing, or anything else. Is there anything that you would have done differently in the name of, say, people who do look up to you, consider you to be a leader and an example in their life? Is there anything that you see now that you would have done differently?
Yeah. At the same time, I have, the theme of this podcast, I have a great level of acceptance, and I'm not going to change the past, so I don't dwell on these things. But I think, I would have probably just not said anything, realistically. I think, but grief is a complicated thing, and you get caught up in the moment, and I felt this. I guess I felt sort of compelled, unjustifiably, but I felt compelled to come forward and explain a little bit why I'd been dark online for so long, why I hadn't been making videos and all this. And so that's why when I put that video out in early May, I think it was in early May, on my YouTube channel about my wife's passing, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done that. And then in hindsight too, I wouldn't have gone public with trying to meet a partner. Having said that, because I did that, I met the exact woman that I was meant to meet. So I wouldn't change it. Yeah, I mean, like, a bunch of trolls jumped on all that, but at the same time, like, I manifested a woman that is absolutely perfect for myself and my family. So I wouldn't undo that. I guess I just, if I were to look at it objectively in hindsight, I could have done things differently, but at the same time, who fucking cares? That's life. That you're gonna do a lot of things that you don't want to do. You're gonna make tons of mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like failing forward. If at the end, if I got what I wanted, which was for me to meet, I did this ridiculous thing where I put out publicly I had this list, a manifestation list of the perfect woman. And I met Katie this exact same way. I had this manifestation list. My friend Jillian advised that I write it. And I met Katie 2 weeks after writing it. And it was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. The girl's exactly what I wanted. Everything on this list, this is far out. And so Jillian, who's still a very close personal friend of mine, she was also very close with Katie and my kids. She said, advised me again after, Katie's passing, because she knew that and she knew Violet wanted me to move on too. And Katie's brother wanted me to as well. And I was like, okay, I'll write the list again. She told me to write the list. So I wrote the list and I went super public with it. Kind of, not fully. It's like, I didn't put it on my YouTube channel, not until later, but I went onto this Facebook group called Unvaccinated Singles and I put it on there, and it got insane engagement because of who I am and people know me. I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't surprised by it, I guess. And it was this whole journey, and it was insane and ridiculous. And I made some videos in there because I just got inundated with women. Like it was like out of a fucking movie, Beth. Like it was ridiculous. I put all this out there, and I got trolled like crazy. But at the flip side, I got 100 or more direct messages from women that were telling me how excited they were and how refreshing it was that a man comes out and says exactly what he wants. As offensive as that is to the sort of the incel right-wing crowd or the sort of social justice left-wing crowd that were offended by the fact that I said, hey, I'm open to dating a single woman or a single mother, but her children have to be white. Like, how dare you say that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'd said, if the girl has to be an attractive on at least a level 8, stupid, superficial. But at the same time, it's my life. And so it's like, you want to sit here and criticize what I want in my life. I mean, it kind of shows how petty people are. But at the end of the day, I got exactly what I wanted. So yes, I probably wouldn't have done it that way, but here I am with a woman who is unbelievable. She's everything I wanted, spiritually, physically, socially, mentally, a perfect fit for my kids. She understands trauma. She understands like all these things at a very high level. And so she's literally the perfect fit. Katie's mom loves her. Katie's brother loves her. And so, yeah, maybe I could have done it differently, but at the end of the day, I got what I wanted. So maybe not. I had to deal with some bullshit with some significant haters that really came after me. How dare you not be suffering? How dare you decide to move forward with your life? That kind of self-righteous, retarded shit. But the things that I learned in that whole journey were pretty interesting. Is that when it comes to death, people project like nothing else. Like, you want to talk about projections, the judgments that people will make on you when they see you trying to move forward with your life and be the best you can for your children, the projections are unbelievable. And that was a pretty interesting learning experience. So yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't change anything. But yeah, would I have liked to have done it differently? Sure. I would have liked to have just written this list and then had another woman pop into my life. Problem for me is I live in the sticks. I live in the boonies. I'm not out there socializing and rubbing shoulders with women.
Right.
And so I felt that was a thing that, hey, if I can do it, why not? And so why not put it out to a global market and pick the best one? And I did. I had women messaging me. It was ridiculous, Beth. Like, I had women messaging me from all over the world. And there was a 4-day period where I was literally on calls interviewing these women that I even had, human design profile, astrology, this is what I want. And women would be reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm this and this and this and not this, but this is why. And I was just having FaceTime and Zoom calls with women for 4 days straight. I barely slept. And on the 4th day, I met a woman that was very, very compelling to me. And I got on a flight to Toronto and we hung out for 3 days, and it was divine. It was unbelievable how it all went down. And so, yeah, I guess I won in the end. But was it easy? No. Was it a bit shameful? Yes, perhaps. But I got what I wanted, so that's all that really matters.
Well, thank you so much for speaking about that so candidly. It was fascinating to watch. Honestly, like I'll just admittedly, it's a kind of thing, and I had a certain projection, not on you, but just like a reflection on myself. Say, as a woman, if I was to do that, I don't think it would work at
No,
all.
it wouldn't, because you'd get too many, because there's too many men that
That
are
wouldn't be a
vying for
problem.
too few women.
Is it not the other way around that there's such a limited number of and this is not a take against, but there is a limited number of men who have, you know, dug in, done something, accomplished things, created something that a woman, you know, it's important to a woman, some status, some is
I
being
see what you're saying.
solid in their
Yes,
own
and
life, right? Like it's
yes.
more rare. They're
Well, and no, and
masculine.
I agree. And I was on the dating apps a little bit. I went on Hinge. I went on the Unjected, the unvaccinated app. And yes, I mean, well, so the experience from the man side is that, yes, you're right in that there's very, very, very limited amount of quality men, but it's also the same very limited amount of quality women, because when you, from my perspective, if you're like scrolling through these apps, what I see as a man is two things primarily as far as single women in my age bracket. But I was looking a little bit younger, and the woman that I have connected with is 8 years younger than me. But I was looking, call it 35 plus, like say 35 to 40 kind of thing. And it's women that are overtly tattooed, which I'm not that into. Um, and they're most often single moms with like a brown baby. Like, I'm sorry to be so candid and politically incorrect, but that is like extremely common with what I see looking at the women. So I'm like, okay, I'm okay with a single mom, but I happen to not hate my heritage. And so I'm okay dating a single mom. I just want her kids to be white so that they fit in with my kids, and that there's not some brown baby that's on the minority of fitting in with our family. I wanted to have like a woman who's Caucasian and blue eyes, preferably, because I want, if I have more kids, I want them to look like the kids that I already have, just to make them fit in better. But and I recognize too, on the women's side, it's there's so many guys out there that are just total fucking losers, who are literally, and it's the sort of the incel thing where they're just online all the time. They've never talked to a woman in person. They don't have any game at all in the traditional sense. And so I get it. It's difficult for women too, but it's difficult for quality men, because I could consider myself a quality man and a catch, as far as what I've done in my life. And that if I'm on the dating apps, I'm in the soup of all the other losers. And the only thing that makes you stand out is high quality photos of your fucking abs, right? And that's just not who I am. I've spent more time on my career and my life in general than I have my abs. And so I can't stand out. And so I realized fairly quickly that that whole dating app thing for a guy like me is a complete waste of time. That's where, when I found this Facebook group, I was like, well, then that's interesting, because then at least I can bring forward my social capital. Yes, with that comes a lot of burden of responsibility and annoyance, in that, hey, Curtis Stone is here, and people know who I am. 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like, the trolling was unbelievable. There was like 20 people that were spent 4 days on that thing alone, just like constantly trolling. It's like, instead of crushing it in their own lives, they're just talking about my dating preferences, and just completely illustrates the capacity that people have to be absolute losers in the online world. Is like, you're sitting here talking about my dating preferences instead of like manifesting your own greatness in your own life. Like, what does that say about society today, right? But again, I mean, it worked for me, because I had all these women reach out to me, that like, a lot of quality women that saw all the trolling and immediately were like, well, I can see through that because I have discernment. And so any woman I'm going to be interested in dating better have discernment. Otherwise, I'm not going to be interested in them whatsoever. And so all these quality women reached out to me and had a great level of discernment. And so I had a very fun 4 days where I just talked to all these really quality women and just got to pick the best one. And it was like, what a privilege. My goodness. And so my thinking as I look at it objectively is go, well, if I can do that, why wouldn't I? Sure, not every man has the capacity to do that, but I'm not like every man. I'm probably in an extreme minority of men today. So why wouldn't I do it? And I'm able to take the haters because I've been dealing with haters for 11 years posting online, like being on YouTube. It's day to day, right? So I actually had a lot of fun with it. And it was ridiculous and comical at points, but it worked.
There you go. Well, that's amazing. Thank you
There
so
you
much
go.
for, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I find it fascinating personally because it's such a big subject, and
One day I'll probably write a book about it,
yeah,
because
yeah,
even how I got to meet with Jen and how there was all these like crazy synchronicities between us that just lined up, where it just felt like God was just like pushing me in this direction, as comical and silly as it was. The way we became a couple was like fucking crazy synchronicity. And that's one thing that has served me very well in the last 10 years of my life, is I've always kind of followed synchronicity. When I see patterns in threes, like when I see like just green lights, I just chase that. And so that really served me well with her, because we just kept having all these alignments, and it just felt very, very from the other side, kind of willing this into existence. And I've just kind of surrendered to that. When I find the synchronicity and the serendipity, I just follow that. And then when I experience red lights, I'm stubbing my toe, things, I'm fumbling, I just go, okay, hold on a second, step back. What am I doing right now that's not alignment with who I truly am? And I look at that objectively, and then I find the path and I get back on the track.
nice. Yeah, I call them divine breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
Breadcrumb. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then to close, is there anything more that you would want to share about acceptance? You also just use the word surrender. They're similar, not the same.
Yeah.
I would, I draw a distinction there because acceptance is on the level of emotions. It is one of our human emotions on the scale of emotion. It is a lived expression, experience, vibration, whereas surrender, now we're in like we could get in word jail pretty quickly around this,
Right.
but just to me, surrender is more like being off the map. It's not an emotion. It's more of a letting go into freedom or the unnameable, however you
Yes.
want to say that. So now that I gave all my meanings, is there anything more that you want to share about that?
Yeah, I would say, well, for one, you won't surrender till you accept. I think acceptance is the first step through the gate.
I agree.
You won't move forward in any capacity without an acceptance. The part of why that word has become so profound for me, especially in this year, is like, as you know, I do a lot of sort of cowboy lawyer work, if you will. I'm a conspiracy theorist who started reading the law 10 years ago, and I probably only know 1% of what lawyers know, but it's the 1% that moves the needle. And so a big part in the legal world as well is acceptance. And if you ever get into the work of a guy named Gordon Hall, he has a really cool way of illustrating sort of it's called the four doors of law, and that there's only four ways to interact with the state. There's acceptance, refusal, silence, and conditional acceptance. But acceptance is the first gate, because until you accept, you're not going to go anywhere else. But the interesting thing is that in legalese, acceptance means to hold with intention to retain. So acceptance doesn't mean the same in law as it does in common parlance, but it is ultimately usable in the same way, in that you get a letter from the state, until you accept, which is to hold with intent to retain, to stay in honor, you're not going to get anywhere. Because you go the old Dean Clifford way, and Dean Clifford's a good personal friend of mine, and he'll even tell you himself, is you go in and play this game of rah, 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 fuck you. And oh, I'm not the person, I'm the man, get into all this stuff, you're going to end up in prison real quick. And it's the same on the personal side. of this, in the spiritual side and acceptance, is that if you don't accept the conditions that you're in first, you won't even have anywhere to go. You're going to be in this endless loop of denial, anger, and just holding all of these emotions that are never going to resolve themselves. So there's interesting parallels that I've found, and it's given me a huge amount of peace, because I look at the world as a grand dichotomy. And when you come to the law workshop in October, there I visually lay this out. I have a copy of the Bible on one side, and then I have a copy of Black's Law Dictionary on the other. And the dichotomy I paint is that the Bible is a representative of the world that is and how it was created. But the Black's Law Dictionary is an inversion of the world. So there's God and the devil. And the copy I have, Black's Fifth, looks like a satanic tome. It's very profound the way it looks. It is the administrative capacity of the world that is. So God created the world, and it's truth, it's what's right, it's everything. But over here in the devil's world, it's an inversion that is the interpretation of the world through the administrative capacity of the legalese, which is the devil's game. So God created the world, but the devil administers it through your consent. And it's understanding both of these worlds that we end up somewhere in between. And for me, that's actually why I put a copy of the Maxims of Equity in between, is because it's the interpretation of that which gets you the remedy. And the remedy is all in the Matrix, at least in my experience. It's all in the Matrix. It's just like in the movie The Matrix, when Morpheus goes and he pulls Neo out, he pulls out the cords and all that, and then he takes him into the Kung Fu simulator. He's essentially training him in equity to go, these are the rules of engagement. Then they go back in the Matrix to settle. And so that is this dichotomy between the worlds that we live in. Is you might not like the Matrix, and I don't agree with any of it, but it is. And the devil has the administrative capacity to manage the world through your consent. That's why they need you alive, they need you to believe, and then they need you to consent. That's why everything needs a signature. And so acceptance is the first step of any of that. In the personal realm, which is the world of God and the real realm of what is, to the Matrix in the veil that we all put in when we go into this legal world. It's all connected.
Very good answer. That's awesome. There is one question in the chat. Do you want to try to take that, or
regarding Jen? She had crazy synchronicity. So a far out thing. One day, Jen and I will write a book about this whole experience, because it was so crazy, and there's so much to the story. But so I had this list, right, and I put it online. So and you can even go watch a YouTube video, because enough haters came at me that I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna come full out and just wear this. And I did a whole live stream on showing you the list. As ridiculous it is, there it is for all to see. You can go on my YouTube channel and watch that stream. But Jen had a list that she wrote about 6 months prior, where she physically wrote it, and it was this little booklet, and it was a manifestation calling in the perfect man for her life. And she read me this list. She showed it to me because it was actually physically handwritten. She wrote this list, and it was a complete manifestation of me in every single line. It's crazy. Wow. So we both basically called in our perfect partner and then found our way through the ether, and here we are.
Nice. And
she even put on there that she was okay if the guy had kids. Like, it was everything about her list was a lot more like leaning on spiritual and personal beliefs. But yeah, it literally every point on her list was me. It's just crazy.
Nice. And the list is the same as how you recommend land, that there's negotiables.
It is negotiables and non-negotiables. Yeah, I know.
I started going through mine yesterday, just in my head, and then I got gifted a journal. Too bad it's not open yet, but I think I'm going to use it that exact way. So very good. Well, thank you so much, Curtis. Is there anything you want to share with us, maybe about the upcoming? I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks. I can't believe how fast that's coming up.
Yeah. You know, I can actually be more open about these things now because of the partnerships changed at Freedom Farmers. But yeah, I teach these law workshops, and I do it only in private. The main reason is that I take the responsibility of the information extremely seriously. And a lot of the mentors that got me to where I am now, the guys that you'd never hear about, they're not public guys. Like, people know about Cal Washington, Dean Clifford. Those guys are friends of mine. But the people I learned the most from are guys that you'd never hear about. They kind of had this modus operandi with all of it, in that if you're going to teach remedy, you have to do it privately. If you do it publicly, CSIS and the CIA are going to follow you. And so I don't do that stuff publicly. I only do it privately. That's why I do these workshops in person, because I show people my letters. Like, I show, look, this is what I did, but I don't want screenshots of it floating online. That's why I don't do Zoom calls or any of that stuff. And so I do these around Canada. And if people want to know more about that, probably just best to go and follow me on my Telegram channel, SHTF Farmer at t.me.
Got it.
Let me just find that here, because that's the only place that I share that. Yeah, at SHTF Farmer.
Yeah.
And then that's my Telegram channel, and people can follow me there. And I share, where those workshops are going to be. I do them around Canada. For the most part, it's sort of BC, Alberta, Ontario. But yeah, I want to help people. I want to help people find freedom. But the thing that I've learned that's the most sort of profound way of describing how we get people out of the matrix was an analogy that one of my latest mentors illustrated to me. I flew to Toronto one time to meet this guy, have lunch, and then I flew back home. And in a 4-hour meeting, he unpacked more to me than I had really fully understood in the last 10 years. And he said, think about it this way. We're all on the Titanic, and everybody on the Titanic is drunk. Like 99% of the people on the boat are just drunk, wasted. This represents sort of all the normies that are just going along, get along, that get caught up in the he said, she said of all the world and the latest things here and there, truthers included. But there's 1% of the people on the boat that can see that we're heading for an iceberg. And there's kind of two ways we can go about it, because all of us that aren't drunk, we're all kind of hanging by maybe we're watching the string quartet play and we're kind of having interesting conversations, but we can see that the boat's going to the iceberg, and we have a quick little powwow to say, okay, look, we got two options here. One is we yell and scream and tell everybody that the boat's going to hit the iceberg, and we might risk not getting on the life rafts because we'll cause a panic, and then we could even steer the boat off kilter, which could make it sink faster. Or right now, without saying anything to anybody, we just get in single file to the life rafts right now, and then let them figure it out. And so that's the way we get people out of the matrix. It's one at a time. It's with great care. It's not about waking up the masses. Fuck the masses. They're done. They'll go. There might be a remedy for them at some point, but I don't know what that looks like. Mm-hmm. But so we get them out one at a time. We get in life rafts. We go orderly, women and children first. We go calmly and politely, and we don't worry about the numbers game. We just worry about the quality. And so that's been my whole approach to this stuff, is doing that. And I found it to be very fulfilling. And this is kind of why another reason why I decided just to step back from posting online, is because I feel like if you're not awake right now, God help you, and maybe you'll come around at some point, but I'm not here to wake people up anymore. I'm just here to mobilize the people that already are and give them the tools that they can use to help get them to a better place. And in my practice of law, it's all in the matrix. It's all just using the statutes and codes and equity to find the 95% freedom, as I call it. Because I use the driver's license. I don't cash in the straw man and do any of that stuff. I just use the system as it is, because the system is like a Swiss cheese. It's full of holes. And that's where knowledge of equity can help us navigate the statutes and ordinances as they are, to find the loopholes and find the remedies.
Very good. Yeah, I love that. One at a time with great care. And I absolutely subscribe to that in my own work, which is not helping people get legally free, but spiritually, emotionally, and sometimes physically as well, which all kind of go hand in hand. And that's exactly. And you can't run after people and like, you're not free, because if they don't know that, and they're not actually in that place of looking for help because they've come to some level of acceptance that I'm not where I want to be, exactly, then it's not going to be the subject between us. I will not run after you, but I'm here for you if you did reach that point. Just so everyone knows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, fantastic. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm thoroughly appreciative of your time and your openness on all of this. And I look forward to seeing you quite soon.
Yeah. We'll see you soon. All right, Beth.
I'm going to play us out with my son, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye.